الكرة بترجع مرة أخرى. الله على لوكا، لوكا يبعدها، لوكا ولكن خاطئة، والتصويبة القوية يا رب.
At the start of the season, it felt like Real Madrid had just built the Avengers of football. Mbappe, Vinny Jr., Jude Bellingham. It was supposed to be unfair.
If Mbappe lands Madrid, Barcelona doesn't have to get ready. The world has to get ready. Man City needs to get ready. Bayern needs to get ready. Because Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe on the same team, there is no defense in the world that can clamp that. I don't care if you got Rodri and Ruben Diaz, you cannot clamp the speed of Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe on the counterattack. No team in the world can. It's impossible, especially when Jude Bellingham and Madrid are whipping passes to them on the wings.
People were talking about trebles, invincibles, rewriting history books. But a few months, and here we are, scratching our heads asking, what the hell happened? How did the biggest super team in Europe end up crashing and burning this badly, and how can they change this? When Real Madrid announced the arrival of Kylian Mbappe to a squad already featuring Vinicius Jr. and Jude Bellingham, the football world expected domination. On paper, this team had the firepower to challenge for a treble, the league title, the Champions League, and the domestic cups. Instead, they have fallen well short on every front. In the Champions League, the collapse started early. Despite their star-studded lineup, Madrid finished 11th overall in the group stage standings, an unthinkable result for a club of their stature. They suffered defeats to Lille, AC Milan and Liverpool, raising serious doubts about their ability to control matches against high-intensity teams. Their only path to the round of 16 came after narrowly beating a weakened Manchester City, a team battling internal issues and injuries. Even then, Madrid's performance lacked the control and ruthlessness expected at this level. In the round of 16, Madrid faced Atletico Madrid. They advanced, but only after winning on penalties, a match where they looked fragile and reactive. The warning signs were already there: a lack of clear structure, heavy dependence on individual moments, and difficulty controlling tempo. Those cracks became impossible to ignore in the quarter-finals, where Arsenal completely dismantled them. Madrid was overwhelmed, outplayed, and eliminated without much resistance. In La Liga, the story followed a similar pattern. Madrid started strong, building a 7-point lead over Barcelona. However, defeats to Espanyol and Real Betis, combined with draws against Atletico Madrid and Osasuna, allowed Barcelona to close the gap. Now Barcelona leads the table by 4 points, and Madrid's chances of winning the league are slipping away. Their domestic cup record has been just as disappointing. Madrid lost 2 domestic trophies to Barcelona this season, including a devastating 5-2 defeat in one of the finals. It wasn't just the losses that were concerning, it was the manner of them. Madrid was second best throughout, showing none of the composure or tactical sharpness they once had. In every competition that mattered, Madrid has either fallen short or collapsed under pressure. What was supposed to be a historic season has instead become a harsh reality check. And it's not down to one mistake, it's the result of deeper structural problems that were never addressed. The failure of Real Madrid's super team was not caused by one single factor. It was a combination of structural flaws, tactical imbalances, and key personnel issues that slowly unraveled their season. One of the biggest tactical challenges Real Madrid faced this season was integrating Mbappe, Vinicius Jr. and Jude Bellingham into the same starting 11. Last season, Vinicius and Bellingham developed an almost telepathic understanding. Vinicius operated wide on the left, isolating defenders and creating space for Bellingham to make late, decisive runs into the box. Their combination was devastating, giving Madrid unpredictability and balance across the final third. But when Mbappe arrived, the dynamics changed completely. Mbappe, like Vinicius, thrives on the left side, cutting inside onto his stronger right foot. Forcing him to play centrally or wide right reduced his effectiveness. Ancelotti, trying to accommodate all 3 stars, shifted Bellingham deeper into midfield, where his attacking instincts were naturally restrained. Meanwhile, Vinicius was sometimes moved wider than usual, hugging the touchline to make room for Mbappe's movements inside. The result was a disjointed attack. Instead of fluid, instinctive play, Madrid's forward line often looked mechanical and crowded. Defenders found it easy to predict their movements because both wide players, Vini and Mbappe, kept drifting into similar areas. Teams like Arsenal exposed this flaw brutally, They blocked the left channel, overloaded that side with 2 or 3 players, and suffocated Madrid's attacks at the source. Without proper spacing and a true central outlet, Madrid struggled to break down organised defences. Another important factor was the absence of a traditional number 9 last season. Joselu played a crucial role off the bench. He gave Madrid something different, a physical presence in the box, someone who could occupy defenders, win aerial duels, and change the shape of games when needed. His goals often came at critical moments, and his ability to stretch defences vertically opened spaces for Bellingham and Vinicius. This season, with Mbappe in the squad, the reliance on Joselu disappeared. Madrid opted for a false 9 system more often, sacrificing physicality for star power. When matches became tight, there was no simple alternative, no direct route, no last-minute tactical shift. The squad lacked variation in their attacking patterns, making them easier to defend against. Mbappe's presence didn't just create tactical congestion, it also subtly shifted the team's focus. Instead of playing collectively, Madrid started relying more on individual brilliance. The coordinated team movements that characterized their best performances last season became rare. There were moments of brilliance, of course. With players of that quality, there always will be. But over 90 minutes, Madrid lost the consistency and control that made them so dangerous. Ancelotti's inability to solve this problem quickly became one of the major narratives of the season. His tactical adjustments, trying Mbappe as a centre-forward, moving Vini to a more rigid wing position, dropping Bellingham deeper, only partially addressed the issue. The core problem remained. The 3 superstars were never given a system that maximised their strengths simultaneously. Instead, each compromise weakened another aspect of their attack. And in the higher stakes games, especially against disciplined teams like Arsenal, those compromises were brutally exposed. Another major reason Real Madrid's season unravelled was the absence of real game changers from the bench. Last season, Joselu was critical for Ancelotti, not because of his goals, though he did deliver important ones, but because he gave the team tactical flexibility. When matches demanded a change of approach, Joselu could come in, act as a traditional number 9, and stretch defences vertically. His presence alone forced opposition defenders to stay deeper, allowing midfielders and wide players more room to operate. This season, Real Madrid lost that weapon. With the arrival of Mbappe and a shift towards a star-driven front line, when matches became tight or tactical battles intensified, Madrid had no easy plan B. There was no immediate aerial threat to throw into the box, no physical forward to occupy 2 centre-backs, and no ability to switch styles late in the game. In theory, they do have exciting options like Arda Güler and the newly arrived Endrick. Both are extremely talented. Güler is creative, intelligent between the lines, and capable of producing magical moments. Endrick brings raw explosiveness, an instinct for goal scoring and hunger. However, both are still very young. They can impact matches when the team is already on the front foot, but expecting them to change the dynamics of tight, physical, high-pressure games is unrealistic at this stage of their careers. Experience matters in late Champions League knockouts, title run-ins, and domestic cup finals. Players who understand game management, who know when to slow the game down, when to gamble, and when to stay compact. Madrid lacked that kind of presence from the bench this season. When Real Madrid found themselves in difficult situations, like in the second half against Arsenal, or struggling to break down deep defensive blocks in La Liga, they needed players who could immediately shift the tone of the match, not just bring technical quality. Experienced forwards or midfielders who could adapt to the rhythm of big games, not just rely on individual flashes of brilliance. Even tactically, Ancelotti's options were restricted. Without a player like Joselu to bring in, he couldn't change the structure. There were no options to go 2 up front, no threat of bombardment with crosses, no late-game physical pressure on opposition defences. Madrid became one-dimensional, stuck trying to find solutions with the same players that were already being contained on the pitch. Opponents adapted, organised, and grew in confidence. Madrid had no surprises left to throw at them. The result was that in too many matches when the initial game plan stalled, there was no credible alternative. And in the highest level football, when you don't have solutions beyond your starting 11, you pay the price. Real Madrid always had talent on the bench this season, but what they missed was the right kind of talent. Mature, battle-tested, tactically flexible players who could change not just the intensity, but also the structure of a match when required. And that, more than anything, made their star-studded starting lineup feel isolated and vulnerable when things got tough. Another huge blow to Real Madrid this season was the departure of two leaders, Toni Kroos and Nacho Fernandez. On paper, Madrid looked like they could replace them. In reality, they couldn't.
Toni Kroos off the underside of the cross.
Wriggle his way through, cleared out to Toni Kroos. Oh, what a finish into the top corner.
Kroos with his space for the German. Drives one in. What a shot. What a goal.
Starting with Toni Kroos. Kroos wasn't just a technical midfielder, he was the heartbeat of Real Madrid's control in big matches. His passing range, his ability to dictate tempo, his calmness under pressure, these were all unmatched. Last season, especially in the critical phases of the Champions League and La Liga title race, it was often Kroos who slowed the game down when it was becoming too chaotic, or who accelerated Madrid's passing when they needed a breakthrough. He was a metronome, making sure Madrid didn't lose their shape in midfield. He was also a shield, protecting the ball, rarely losing possession, and helping the team dominate the midfield battle through positioning rather than just physicality. Without Kroos, Madrid's midfield became much more emotional this season, much faster but also much more chaotic. Players like Camavinga and Tchouaméni and even Bellingham are incredibly talented, but none bring the positional mastery Kroos had. Against disciplined teams, Madrid's midfield could no longer control the tempo. They often found themselves running too much, chasing shadows and leaving spaces behind, which teams like Arsenal ruthlessly exploited. Toni Kroos's absence isn't just about missed passes or uncompleted plays, it's about losing the brain of the midfield. And at this level, when the brain is gone, the whole body suffers. Now turning to Nacho Fernandez. Nacho was never the flashiest player, but he was irreplaceable in depth, versatility and leadership. Whenever Madrid needed a solution across the back line, left back, right back or centre back, Nacho stepped in with minimal fuss and delivered performances that rarely dropped below a high standard. This season, Madrid's defence was hammered by injuries, Eder Militao's long-term injury and Alaba's inconsistencies. Without Nacho, Real Madrid had to throw less experienced or less reliable players into key roles. One of the clearest examples was Francisco Garcia, also known as Fran Garcia, being moved around the defence. While talented, Garcia is still young and prone to mistakes. Another player who is also prone to mistakes is Raul Asensio. In the crucial match against Arsenal, it was Asensio who gave away a clumsy penalty by fouling Bukayo Saka. Saka missed, but that foul exposed Madrid's defensive fragility. Against top-level competition, small mistakes lead to big consequences. With Nacho, those errors were far rarer. He had the experience and reading of the game to neutralise threats quietly and efficiently. Toni Kroos and Nacho might not have been headline stars anymore, but their impact was profound. Their leadership in the dressing room, their calmness in tense moments, and their consistency on the field were foundations upon which Real Madrid's recent success was built. Without them, the cracks that had been manageable last season widened into gaping holes this season, and opponents wasted no time in exploiting them. You see, one of the most underestimated reasons behind Real Madrid's collapse this season has been the injury to Dani Carvajal. While much of the attention is focused on the struggles of high-profile players like Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham and Kylian Mbappe, very few have truly recognised how critical Carvajal's presence was to Madrid's structure and how badly they have suffered without him. Carvajal's role was never limited to simple defending. In Carlo Ancelotti's system, he functioned almost like a second winger when Madrid had possession. His constant willingness to push higher up the pitch, maintain the width and hug the touchline forced opposition defences to stretch far wider than they wanted. By widening the backline, Carvajal helped open central pockets of space for players like Bellingham to make late runs into the box, or for Vinicius Jr. to cut inside and create. His positioning alone often distorted defensive structures, creating confusion and indecision in opposing teams. This was a subtle but fundamental element of Real Madrid's attacking success over the past few years. Defensively, Carvajal offered even more. His understanding of when to press, when to drop, when to cover the centre, and how to time his recovery runs gave Madrid incredible stability. He could match fast wingers stride for stride, and he rarely got caught out of possession. His ability to read the game and make critical interventions allowed the entire backline to play with more confidence and push higher up the field when necessary. However, when Carvajal suffered his injury this season, Madrid lost all of that. They lost the width, the balance, the defensive assurance, and the high-level tactical intelligence that he brought. Carlo Ancelotti attempted several solutions, using players like Luca Vacas and Fran Garcia, but none were capable of replicating what Carvajal provided. Luca Vacas, while hard-working and loyal, simply did not possess the same technical level or tactical discipline. His forward runs lacked the threat and precision of Carvajal's, and defensively he was far more vulnerable, particularly against high-quality opposition who targeted him relentlessly. The system, as a result, became narrower and easier to defend against. Madrid's attack began to look predictable. Opposing teams like Betis quickly identified that the left side was overloaded with Vinicius and Mbappe, while the right side no longer offered any real threat. Without Carvajal's overlapping runs and stretching of the defense, Real Madrid's attacks became congested and easy to contain. The midfielders found fewer passing lanes, Bellingham was crowded out, and the forwards had no room to operate. Defensively, the situation worsened. Without Carvajal's positional discipline, Madrid's backline was pulled apart more easily. Opponents who previously struggled to create chances now found space down the flanks and in the half spaces behind the fullbacks. The security that Madrid once enjoyed slowly evaporated, and mistakes both forced and unforced became a regular occurrence. Beyond the tactical impact, Carvajal's absence also hurt Madrid psychologically. He was one of the last remaining links to the era of Champions League dominance, a player who embodied the club's winning mentality and composure in critical moments. Without him, there was a noticeable lack of leadership and organisation at the back. Moments of adversity that Madrid might have once navigated smoothly turned into collapses. Confidence dropped, and cracks that were once papered over became glaringly obvious. Ultimately, the loss of Dani Carvajal was not just about losing a right-back, it was about losing a system's key pillar, a tactical weapon and an emotional leader. In his absence, Real Madrid became predictable, vulnerable and increasingly fragile. While it is easy to blame the headline players for not delivering, the truth is that without the foundation Carvajal provided, the entire structure of the team has crumbled far more easily than anyone expected. With all these issues, it has shown that if they continue this way next season, they might continue to go down. The cracks are too wide, the system too predictable, and the solutions within the current setup too limited. If Madrid truly wants to avoid another season of failure, they need to act, and act decisively. There are two moves that could immediately start to repair the damage: appointing Xabi Alonso as manager and signing Angelo Stiller as a long-term midfield solution. Carlo Ancelotti's legacy at Real Madrid is undeniable. He brought La Decima when the club had been desperate for it for over a decade. He managed egos, he won the Champions League, he kept the club stable during turbulent periods. But football moves quickly. Systems that once worked begin to break down when the tools change. And right now, Ancelotti looks like a manager running out of fresh ideas. His inability to balance a squad containing Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr. and Kylian Mbappe, three world-class players, is the clearest sign. There is no longer the tactical innovation needed to maximize the unique skill sets of his players. The team is trapped between systems, whether it wants to counter-attack, dominate possession, or play in transition. The confusion is visible on the pitch. This is why Xabi Alonso would be the perfect fit. His work at Bayer Leverkusen has proven that he is not just a former great player, but a tactical mind capable of adapting to modern football's demands. Alonso has built systems that are fluid but structured, attacking but disciplined, and most importantly, he has shown an incredible ability to get the best out of his players. His understanding of midfield dynamics, pressing structures, and positional play is exactly what Madrid needs to modernize their approach. His connection to Real Madrid as a former player would also ensure that the cultural identity of the club remains intact, something that has often been lost when change is rushed or forced. But bringing in Alonso alone would not be enough. Real Madrid also desperately needs to find a replacement for Toni Kroos, someone who can provide the same control, tempo and intelligence in midfield that Kroos offered for nearly a decade. That replacement should be Angelo Stiller. The young German midfielder has quietly risen through the ranks, demonstrating qualities eerily similar to Kroos. Impeccable passing range, calmness under pressure, precise positional sense, and the ability to dictate the rhythm of games without ever looking rushed. What makes Stiller even more impressive is that he has already shown he can step into big shoes, having performed admirably for Germany when called upon to fill in for Kroos. Stiller would fit into Real Madrid's midfield like a glove. His style of play complements players like Federico Valverde and Edward Camavinga. offering the control and balance that Madrid has lost this season. While Camavinga and Valverde are brilliant at breaking lines and providing energy, they sometimes lack the deep-lying composure needed to settle a game when under pressure. Silla brings exactly that. He would give Real Madrid the option to control matches from deep areas, free up Bellingham to operate higher up the pitch, and allow the wide players to focus on attacking rather than constantly dropping back to collect the ball. The idea is not to simply replace Kroos with a like-for-like copy, but to ensure the midfield doesn't lose its heartbeat. Still, it can be that heartbeat for the next decade if Real Madrid moves quickly. With a new tactical mind like Xabi Alonso orchestrating the system from the sidelines and a player like Stiller restoring balance in the middle of the park, Madrid would not just patch the holes from this disastrous season, they would be building a foundation strong enough to dominate Europe once again. Change is painful, especially for a club as proud as Real Madrid. But after a season where the Superteam fell apart on almost every front, standing still would be even worse. Real Madrid's future will depend on whether they are willing to evolve or whether they continue to trust a system that has already shown its limits. But what do you think? Can they win if they make these changes to the team? Well, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our last video on why Mbappe should be scared of Xabi Alonso. Thank you.